Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 3rd of September 2025. These are the stories that we'll be highlighting during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the latest situation as far as the floods is concerned. We all know what the situation in Punjab, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in Balochistan, and in Azad Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan is. The worst floods in recent history, especially in Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, have been seen this year since late June. 2 million people have been impacted in Punjab alone and have submerged over 2,000 villages. And I'm just talking of one single region. And Pakistan is a whole plethora of such regions. The fact is that climate change is playing havoc with Pakistan, and we need to be extremely vigilant under the current circumstances on how we need to move forward, not only this monsoon season but also in the coming monsoon seasons in the coming years as well, because the NDMA has already forecast that it's going to be more rains, 22% more rains. To add to that, the United Nations also talks about Pakistan being afflicted with the drought-like condition could happen. So on the one hand we have extreme water, on the other hand we have a lack of water. We need to provide that balance in between in order to conserve the water and also prepare for the floods. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Israeli genocide in Gaza. As we speak, Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman has received a call from the French President Emmanuel Macron, where they not only discuss the latest situation in occupied Palestinian territories but also the ongoing efforts to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Will that affect anything? Will that have any positive effect or not is something that we will only see. But the important thing is that the United Nations General Assembly is going to happen this very month, and we all know that France is going to officially accept Palestine, so is Belgium, so are many other countries from the West, and this is going to create a polarity as far as the whole situation in the Middle East is concerned. Will that affect the plight of the people in Gaza? This is something that we'll only see with time. This is going to be our second story. Our third story concerns China, that has displayed its strength, its military strength rather, let's put it that way, on a spectacular parade that was held on the 80th anniversary of the end of the World War II. As you can see in the parallel window, China displayed its military prowess. Not only did it display its military prowess, it also displayed its friendship and its camaraderie with 25 other leaders who were there to witness this ceremony firsthand, including our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. This is going to be our third story. Our fourth story concerns the US House committee who has released thousands of Epstein files. Now, this is something that the Democrats contest. They say that these files were already released and they are just being re-released, but apparently this is a whole plethora of files that has been released, and that talks about several accounts of Jeffrey Epstein and how he manipulated young girls. I won't go into much detail, but you know what I'm talking of. Finally, ChatGPT is going to sound an alert to parents if the child is in severe distress. This is what ChatGPT promises the parents, but whether this will actually happen, the key word, as we always say, is implementation. Let's see if that gets implemented or not. Let's begin with our first story, and that concerns the floods and the situation, climate change, Pakistan's affliction, and what more. More in this following report, and we'll follow this up with our discussion with our guests. Stay tuned.
Pakistan is experiencing one of the worst flood disasters in its history, fueled by climate change, relentless monsoon downpours, glacial lake outburst floods, sudden cloudburst, and the release of massive waters from India. Rivers Sutlej, Ravi, and Chenab have all swelled to exceptionally high levels, inundating thousands of villages. According to the NDMA, more than 2 billion people have been affected nationwide, Punjab bearing the heaviest losses. Crops, homes, and livestock have been washed away, exposing glaring vulnerabilities from unchecked deforestation to policy failures in water and disaster management. Rescue and relief operations are in full swing. The Pakistan Army, emergency services, and humanitarian partners have evacuated nearly 1 million people to safer grounds, setting up camps, medical posts, and veterinary centers to support displaced families. Yet the challenges remain overwhelming. The international community has begun extending solidarity. The European Union has pledged rupees 350 million in emergency aid, focusing on health, water, sanitation, and cash assistance for the most vulnerable. But officials warn the crisis is far from over. With reservoirs brimming and further heavy rains forecast, new surges could hit southern Punjab and Sindh in the coming days. The floods are a stark reminder that Pakistan, among the world's most climate vulnerable nations, needs urgent reforms, stronger resilience, resilience and sustainable policies to prevent such tragedies from repeating year after year.
To discuss more of this in detail, we've been joined by two very pertinent guests on the situation. Farhan Bukhari Saab, leading analyst, joins us in the studio. Thank you very much, Bukhari Saab, to have joined us. Also, Dr. Usman Mustafa, who is a climate change expert, is in the studios with us. Thank you very much, sir, to have given us the time. And we'll begin, of course, with Farhan Bukhari. What long-term strategies should be considered, in your point of view, or implemented to restore infrastructure, rebuild communities, and strengthen resilience against future climate-related disasters? I'm saying this right now instead of talk of the floods and the disasters that has, taken into consideration, because the fact is that these monsoon rains are almost at their tail end. So, what now? What should we do now?
That's a big agenda that you've put on the table. Multiple aspects to that agenda, but fundamentally, what we need to do as a country is to virtually halt all other work related to development and focus entirely on climate change. I think if we were to pause fancy big roads, other infrastructure projects, train lines, of which we've heard from time to time, we can do those things in a few years' time. But as far as climate change is concerned, time is running out, and it's running out very fast. So I think we need to put all of our resources into the climate change basket. I, for one, give full credit to our finance minister, Mohammad Aurangzeb, who's publicly more than once talked about climate change and population as the existential threat,
and has been very critical.
And hats off to him. I think so far he's the only cabinet member who's come out publicly with these words. Those are critical areas. They will define the future of Pakistan in years, rather decades to come. And I think that is where we should entirely and exclusively turn our focus. And if we can, for want of a better word, if we can move ahead of the game, and try to at least halt further aggravation, then I think a time will come when we can turn our attention to other things. But for now, it has to be
and now this should get all our attention, I think.
Absolutely.
And the prevention of such disasters in the coming years, as well as has been predicted by the NDMA. Dr. Usman Mustafa, climate change is very pertinent as far as Pakistan is concerned. We are one of the most vulnerable countries, despite the fact that we are one of the least carbon emitters. But that does not, evict us from not doing the needful under such circumstances. This staggering infrastructural loss, human loss, over 831 dead, thousands displaced, entire villages swept away, crops destroyed, cattle, dead and swept away by the water. This reflects an urgency for Pakistan to adopt stronger climate adaptation and disaster management strategies. What kind of strategies do you propose?
Yeah, I think the climate is a fact, and at least we cannot 100% dismantle or stop that thing, because there are three factors. One of the factor is the human, because there is a lot of per unit human pressure is increasing due to food, feed and fiber demand, because that's also due to human factor, feed for animal and food for us, and clothes and fiber for that's also using, and because we are using livestock, so we need for, so there is a per unit pressure is increased. So the other factor is natural. There are two natural factors. One is the sun, because sun there are spots that's coming down, or we can say that's not beyond our control. The second one is the volcano eruption. That's also creating a lot of environment problem in the world. So that's also not contribute with us. You understand, one of the very important thing is, particularly during 1991, there is a revolution in the world. Particularly the growth was very high. You can see, if you can see, find out the figure of the growth, it's straight. And even the reason of that, there were two Nobel Prize on that particular phenomena. One is why this growth is so high, that's I forget the name, but he explained that this is the knowledge based economy, because over the time knowledge is increased, and it's like just that when we are playing with a puzzle game and we can find something, then we easily construct the whole picture. So same thing is with the knowledge we got something, and there is it. The second important thing is we have unnecessary production and unnecessary consumption. There is no need of those things, but we are producing because we have a market system, or there is a they want to create more demand. Even there is no need of that. There are a lot of example I can give, because I remember when I am small, we are taking some food even in the people's leaves, and now if you go
what
to
you were trying to say is that we can live with less and we need to adapt ourselves accordingly.
Exactly.
So in order to also adapt ourselves to these climate change.
Yes, but particularly we have to change our habit. It should be started from individual.
Okay.
And the other thing is we have to adopt from local level. So from the local governments, from the union, there it should be from there, from top to the bottom and bottom to up. There should be both approaches.
Right.
It's called bottom up and top down approach.
All right. So this kind of approach needs to be adapted as far as climate adaptation is
Exactly.
concerned, also in disaster management strategy.
Exactly.
All right. Farhan Saab, different countries and organizations have pledged money as far as Pakistan is concerned. We've got Germans who've pledged around 500,000 euros. We've got the Britishers who've pledged 1.3 million pounds as well. We've got EU that has pledged, Red Cross, Red Crescent, other partners as well. How important are these resources in your point of view as far as mitigation of Pakistan's vows is concerned? Is it enough? Should Pakistan also look inwards? What should Pakistan do now under the current circumstances?
So far, there isn't an estimate from the government on how much the disaster, the destruction this year is worth. So how much money is required to tackle the destruction that has taken place so far, and the destruction that's expected in the coming days. We've already heard of the super flood that's being predicted for Sindh. But you have to remember that the international environment right now is one that's very constrained when it comes to foreign assistance. It's not an easy time. It's not a good time for countries to be going out and looking for money. It's a difficult time. The pledges that have been made so far, or the money that's come in, as you mentioned in your intro, that's just not going to be enough, because this is a very, very large population displacement. So I think you have to, as a country, we have to look at new and imaginative ways, because there are very visible signs of lethargy among donors, which might increase. For example, if there's peace in Ukraine, that's just one example, but that's very widely talked about these days. If there's going to be peace in Ukraine, it's possible that European funding
will go there.
That will be a much higher priority for the Europeans than say flood-related destruction in a country like Pakistan. The US, we are not sure, but the United States has already this year, in the first half of this year, taken away lots of big commitments that it had made earlier from agencies of the United Nations. And what's happening in the UN right now is also a very telling reminder. For example, some of the agencies have had to shut down their offices because of the cutbacks from the US. So they've had to end certain positions, trim down their numbers, shut down regional offices in some cases. This is a bad time, and it's a very difficult situation. Pakistan needs to focus squarely and primarily on looking at on its internal situation primarily, to see where savings can take place. If there are expenditures already in the pipeline, or certainly expenditures which are planned, which can be delayed for a few years, those are the other types of options. And certainly mobilizing our own public. Look, this year will be 20 years since the earthquake of 2005. And the vibrant energy that I witnessed, and many of us witnessed 20 years ago, from the people of Pakistan. I still remember on some of my days travels to Muzaffarabad after the earthquake, just watching people on the roadside traveling from Lahore who brought in their dry rations, and they were sitting on the roadsides, and what were they doing? Cooking food that
for the people,
in the earthquake stricken zone. This is the kind of energy
that we need right now.
We need to mobilize that energy right now.
All right, that is very important, and I hope that people are listening, because I think this mobilization becomes even more important. And I think we all need to look locally. I think that is extremely important now, instead of looking towards other countries or other organizations. As we've seen in the past, they are not as reactive as we ourselves are for our own problems. So I think maybe looking inwards and finding local solutions, as you said, innovative solutions could be the right solution. The Punjab government takes out certain important steps, Dr. Saab, like the immediate ban on tree chopping and timber auctions. Do you feel this is going to transform regional approaches to combating deforestation and protecting the rapidly depleting forest cover, and of course indirectly also helping Pakistan mitigate the effects of climate change?
Yeah, I think the particular trees are very important for climate. It's not only for the betterment of the climate, or and also it stop or at least reduce the intensity of the flood, because if you are growing on the bank side of the rivers plants, it's wealth for us. And you know, Pakistan has only very 5 to 6% area under forest, whereas in the world minimum requirement is 15%. So there is a lot of potential and need of that, and there are no new species are already available which can be good for the climate as well as also for the forest point of view, food point of view. So there is a need to grow that, and the intensity are taking care of that. It should be, and it should be from every sphere of the life, from school to individuals, from humbly. Like in some countries, in some African countries, they started that whenever their child born, they have a tree. In the same thing I have in my house. I just, one of my nephew, I asked him to grow a tree, and he asked me what is happening, what's going on. So if you introduce these type of things in the school, colleges, and in our pupils, they own that. They have their, this is my tree, this is my tree. So that type of we have to generate some type of environment where the people love to grow tree, and tree become a part of the life.
I think that's very important, and the understanding of why it is so important also needs to be inculcated amongst our youth and our the young children that are studying in all the different institutions across Pakistan. I think Punjab has taken a right step. The rescue operations for Farhan Bukhari, that has resulted in the evacuation of over 1 million people. I mean, you yourself talked about that. This is not a small amount, over 1 million people, and you know, we have to take care of those 1 million people who've been displaced. What happens to them? How will they return to their lands that have been completely destroyed? And what strategies need to be put into effect so that they can, you know, also mitigate their lives and continue with their lives more or less normally? What challenges remain in ensuring the safety of the people, the safety of their crops, the safety of their cattle?
In many ways, many of those challenges point towards one fundamental challenge, and a big one, which is rebuilding lives in totality. People have lost their crops. There are many people who've lost their livestock. Their homes have been demolished, and the flood water on their fields is not going to go away tomorrow or next week or even next month. And even if it does, the question is, how soon is that land going to be available for cultivation for the next crop? These are big matters, these are big challenges, and that is why I say once again that all other pursuits related to development in Pakistan have to be suspended immediately, with the exception of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, because the Chinese have made some very firm commitments there. So other than that, other things in addition on the side have to be effectively suspended till we can come to grips with this challenge. And this is not going to be an easy challenge.
That is true. That's not going to be an easy challenge. And on top of that, we've got the increase in water levels in different rivers and the different dams as well. Chenab River is carrying 500,000 cusecs as we speak against head Muhammad Wala's capacity of 850,000 cusecs. Do you feel that people or the administration or the authorities are ready to handle further surges in water levels and prevent breaches as critical flood bunds in your point of view, because you've already made certain breaches to prevent as much of the populace as possible and as much of property as possible as well. But are you going to foresee such more breaches in the future?
Yeah, I think new technology innovation are there. Drone, we have a drone technology, we have GIS system, we have lot of so there is a lot of information available, and particularly this time we have seen the government have done some particularly for the information and knowledge sharing of knowledge, that it's better than the previous scenarios. And if you see, there is a less losses of human beings as compared, no doubt there are so many other crops and other livestock and other, there are lot of losses, but as compared to, if you see the way the water coming and dead bodies, particularly the animals coming from the eastern Punjab, is, we have used that, and that's very severe. But particularly here they have announced, and the people are they are well aware about that a flood is coming. Some of them, they are not leaving the house, but at least they protect their livelihoods and lively things.
I think that's very important, to protect their livelihoods and create opportunities to do that, in order to not only protect their present but also their future. That is, under the circumstances, as Farhan Bukhari Sahib has pointed out, the key responsibility.
And what's the thing I think the government is still doing, there is eruption of diseases. It's not only human but also animal diseases.
Many waterborne diseases are prevalent in these areas.
So there is a need of that there should be some special scheme programs launched in those areas. So the vaccination type of things, it should be started. Some of them already started, but it should be intensified.
I think it will.
And there's the clean water, there is a need, particularly the animals fodder is a lack of fodder, and there is a water also availability. So I think there should be a supply line of those
I
things.
agree with you on that, and as the both of you are saying, things needs to be prioritized under the current situation, where the people, the infrastructure that has been destroyed should be put before anything else, and the people should be taken proper care of, and the infrastructure and modalities put into place to prevent as much of damage as possible, not only this year but also in the years ahead. Thank you very much, Dr. Usman Mustafa, to have joined us for this very important segment on the floods. Our second story, ladies and concerns the Middle East, with Gaza in particular. So many things that are happening, whether it be conversations between important leaders such as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and France, whether it be countries like Belgium that have announced that they are going to finally accept the state of Palestine officially, whether it be France and other countries that have already pledged that they are going to accept Palestine or the state of Palestine at the United Nations General Assembly session that is going to happen this month. But the fact also remains that more and more people are dying, more and more people are being killed, and more people are being made to starve to death under the current circumstances. What needs to be done is a collective approach from all the countries, whether they be in the east, in the west, in the north or in the south, in order to prevent the tragedy that has already engulfed Gaza to further escalate into something that the millennia have never seen. Already the death and destruction that we are seeing here has surpassed all the other death and destructions that have been seen in the decades past. To discuss that and more, we continue to be joined by Farhan Bukhari Sahib. Farhan Bukhari Sahib, Europe's response to Israel's war on Gaza has more or less, apart from some countries, been relegated to statements and no proper action. Doesn't this risk undermining its global credibility, as has been said by Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, one leader that openly highlights that the West has made mistakes and it has their strategy has been a failure? Is this going to help the plight of the Palestinians? Will the Europeans wake up?
I think their position has already been undermined, so it's already happened. And that is principally because of just one reason. There's only one country on the face of this planet which can possibly restrain Israel, and that is the United States of America.
Mm.
And so far the US does not seem to be in that much needed forceful kind of mood or mode to make it happen.
Mm.
And therefore, you have Israel completely disregarding global opinion, even the
ICJ, the ICC, the UN,
the whole world.
UNSC.
It's practically the whole world, including protests within the United States. But because of the Trump administration, its backing for Israel, keep on supplying them with some very sophisticated and very lethal weapons.
But isn't this the US strategy all along to be on Israel's side, whether it be the Republicans or the Democrats?
Oh yes, and that's a very long-term strategy. But all I'm saying is that a continuation
It continues
of that,
despite with the current conditions in which the Palestinians are. 20 people are killed in the last 24 hours. More than 100 Palestinians, including journalists, are killed on Tuesday. And 63,633 people have been killed so far officially, because the number of course is more than twice or thrice more as per certain organizations. The world is more or less silent. I mean, there are statements, but that is where it all ends. What will be the tipping point in your point of view that will prompt that change that needs to come? Or will that never happen?
it's hard to point out on a certain aggravation, for want of a better word, future aggravation, which will finally force countries around the world to say enough is enough. There have been many such incidents in the past where people became somewhat hopeful, somewhat optimistic in spite of this very dire situation, because they felt that something had happened and therefore this was the grand finale. The Israelis will have to be restrained, but they haven't, but it's not worked. So the number of Palestinians killed, the number of children killed, the number of women killed, elderly people killed. I fear that the Israelis are really pushing for a complete elimination of every body in Gaza.
Or the displacement of these people from Gaza so that they can occupy Palestine completely. And I think this seems to be the end game of Israel, as has been said time and again since the 7th of October 2023. Also, we were critical of the European Union, and of course that was also because of the statement of the Spanish leader. But also Belgium has announced sweeping measures against Israel. It has included sanctions, an expanded arms embargo, and a ban on importing goods and services. It has been, officially announced by the Prime Minister of Belgium, and also they are going to formally announce the acceptance of the state of Palestine in the United Nations General Assembly session. Do you feel this could have a domino effect, or is this just one example amongst so many that need to happen?
Dominoes historically are very hard to predict.
True.
Although there have been instances where something somewhere has triggered a wider effect. I'm thinking of apartheid, South Africa, and the push against that began from the Scandinavian countries. The late Olof Palme, the late Swedish Prime Minister, he and some others really stepped ahead and very publicly began condemning this terrible situation in South Africa, apartheid, which had not been similarly condemned before. And that led to a cycle of events, and over time the pressure became so immense that the white minority supremacists who were ruling over South Africa had to give in. And then credit must also go to the late Nelson Mandela, because he stood like a rock and ensured that there was going to be no bloodbath, that the black South Africans were not going to pick up arms against the white minority. So the transition became very smooth to where South Africa is today. But it's impossible to predict a similar event. You can't tell. It might happen, it might not happen.
Okay, so I mean, there's a huge unpredictability versus unpredictability as far as the future of the whole Middle East, with of course particular reference to Palestine is concerned. Telephonic conversations happened between Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and the French President Emmanuel Macron, in which they talk on the Saudi-French alignment on Gaza, of course talking of a ceasefire and a two-state solution. Peace efforts have already, never been successful as far as is concerned. The latest being that the recent efforts by the Egyptians and the Jordanians that never really took some kind of a resolution, despite all the efforts that have been put in. What needs to be done in order for some kind of ceasefire to happen?
The US, the US, the US.
Okay, I mean, there's only one answer to it.
Ultimately, that seems to be the only answer.
All right. Israel, apparently, as per a very leading report, has intensified construction at a nuclear site in Dimona, which is suspected to be either a new heavy water reactor or a weapons assembly facility. Doesn't this reignite concerns about Israel's unacknowledged nuclear arsenal and its policy of ambiguity, especially under the current circumstances when we are seeing not only Palestine being hit, but also Syria, Lebanon and others?
And Iran,
of course, how can I forget Iran?
Remains a big target. Look, this is something which has been ongoing for a very long time. Israel is known to have a nuclear weapons program. The Dimona facility has been documented, has been written about for a long time.
But now work has restarted, that's what reignites this concern.
Yes, but they already have reportedly, and this has been documented, a number of nuclear weapons already assembled. I mean, maybe not deployed, that might be a stretch, but certainly already assembled. So how many more could they aim to manufacture in times to come? No one has any idea.
I mean, but this is so ambiguous, this no idea of what's going to happen, but the number of casualties just keeps on increasing by the hour. I mean, it's not even by the day that I can say that. And the people who are dying of hunger and starvation, of lack of food, water and medicine, and when they try to go to the aid facilities, they are being killed and butchered, and they are also being killed and butchered otherwise, even when they are in their tents, for no reason whatsoever. And this is just an extent of war crimes and genocide by a race that calls itself the victim of the Second World War. And this is something that defies gravity, to say the least. I mean, somebody who claims to be a victim or who still talks about it, and then you see what is happening in Palestine. So there is no answer, there is no firm answer, and there is no firm path as to where all of this is going to go. It remains as ambiguous as ever. But let's hope something tangible happens in the coming days. Next, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk about China. Now, China did its military strength in a spectacular parade on the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Russia's Putin, North Korea's Kim also joined Xi Jinping in Beijing. So did our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Tiananmen Square parade showed off the latest military hardware by China as well, and Western leaders, of course, as was expected, largely shunned this spectacle. Xi Jinping said the world faces peace or war in a keynote speech. Let me introduce my two guests that continue to join us. Farhan Bukhari Sahab, of course, in the studios, but also Yunfei Zhao, who is a CGTN reporter. And we'll begin with you, Yunfei. Thank you very much to have joined us. How did this display, Yunfei Zhao, of advanced weaponry such as hypersonic missiles, underwater drones, AI-enhanced tanks, submarine-launched ICBMs serve to communicate China's evolving military and strategic capabilities?
Thank you for having me. I mean, today, even a lot of Chinese will be amazed by the new weapons being showcased over here at the military parade. So it's really a combination of, strategic weapons as well as the spirit of the People's Liberation Army. On the one side, we see the strength. On the other side, we see the spirit. But another layer of the message that China wants to send out, it's the peace, the message for peace, because this is the moment that China reflects on what happened 80 years ago, that after being 14 years of long-term fights and they're suffered from huge sacrifices, we're talking about 35 million casualties, and China doesn't want a war like this. And at this moment, China has built this military, and at the same time promoting for peace, being able to defend for any invasions if there's any.
I think that's important, and I think it was very pertinent also under the current circumstances, geopolitical or geostrategic. I'd also like to understand, Yunfei Zhao, in which ways did President Xi Jinping's rhetoric emphasizing the choice between peace and war and projecting a message of strength also reinforced the parade's underlying geopolitical narrative?
Certainly. So he originally saying that humanity is again faced with a choice of peace or war, dialogue or confrontation, win-win outcomes or zero-sum games. So this moment, he didn't just reflect on the past itself, but he's also taking his speech to a bigger picture, given the larger group of audience, because remember, there are 26 foreign leaders presenting on the Tiananmen rostrum. So this is the message that China wants to send, that it's time for especially the global South to get united and build up for promote a better future, and through a certain degree of global governance. And certainly he recognized that there is a potential threat of, as he mentioned, the confrontation, the zero-sum games. That's the protectionism and unilateralism. And the way how China is promoting the post-World War II order is to promoting the United Nations Charter as well as the United Nations spirit, which is to bringing more peaceful and win-win cooperation.
I think that's extremely important. I think that display and the message has been loud and clear for the world to know, understand and decipher. Stay with us. We have to revert to our guests. Farhan Bukhari Saab, what significance does the attendance of international leaders, Russian President Vladimir Putin, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, our own Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif hold in terms of signaling diplomatic alliances and confronting Western influence?
What we witnessed today at the parade, the presence of all of these leaders, there are two aspects to this. But before I get into these two aspects, I should also say that the one leader who was conspicuous by his absence.
I didn't add the name, but I wanted you to say that.
Narendra Modi. And this tells you where the Indians have simply blocked themselves in a corner. This would have been a brilliant opportunity for Modi to have stood there side by side with all these other leaders, becoming the 26th one, to engage more closely with China rather than being confrontational as they were, much to their loss, in May this year. The two aspects, one is of course the global diplomacy, and there's no doubt about that. China has emerged as a major global leader. But there's another aspect to it. In the history of mankind, I don't recall reading about any other country having attained the kind of technological progress that China has achieved in the last maybe 40 to 50 years.
Agreed.
Look at where they were in the old days, the era of the F-60, F-6 being the Chinese equivalent or the Chinese derivative from the Soviet, the old Soviet MiG-19, which they, by the way, did provide to Pakistan in '66 after Pakistan was placed under US sanctions following the '65 war. And for Pakistan, this is something that we should never forget. First two squadrons of fighter planes, the F-6, were given to Pakistan, and when the late Air Marshal Noor Khan asked for the financial terms, the reply was very interesting. It was, it's a gift from the people of China to the people of Pakistan. Now 59, 60 years later, compare that history where the Chinese have been consistent as partners, supporters of Pakistan, Compare that with our relationship with other countries.
That I think there's a totally different level of relationship when it comes to Pakistan and China. It's only different tangent when it also comes to China's success in the last few decades. I think this is a story that is going to be written for the historical ages in the coming decades and centuries on how a country has progressed so far and so strongly. Yunfei Zhao, my next question concerns the messages that China conveyed domestically also by staging such a grandiose parade. In your point of view, this combination of historical commemoration and modern military spectacle, what kind of message was sent, given or understood by the people in China?
Well, at the same time, for sure, within China, this is a strong message that being sent by the Chinese military is that we're having a strong force. Another layer of the message from the People's Liberation Army is that they're showcasing, the integration of the different forces. So they're bringing the audience really how different forces can integrate it with each other. So it's not just the advancement of the equipment, but how different departments work with each other and how the People's Liberation Army is, adapting new technologies. That's from the technical perspective. From a larger message perspective, it gets a sentiment domestically that China has already been a strong country, and really China has shouldered the responsibility of providing solutions to the global governance and building a closer relationship with foreign countries when it comes to de facto cooperation projects. China will really have the mindset of collaboration.
I think this mindset of collaboration is extremely important and sends a message across different countries, which brings me to the reaction that came, especially from the Western countries, which haven't shown the same enthusiasm or passion, let's put it this way, as many of the countries in this region did. We've also gotten a very strong social media reaction or a social media reaction from the US president. How do you see that from a Chinese perspective?
Well, certainly, this is, if we look at the event itself, this is an event of commemorating the victory of the World Anti-Fascist War. And the United States also is part of the contribution that helped China win the war. So certainly, the US has also made huge contributions. And also, the United States was also making contributions to the establishment of the United Nations. So certainly, this is period of time that China is taking this opportunity to letting people remember what really happened 80 years ago, and then just to reminding people of embracing, cooperation, embracing the win-win, mindset.
I think that is very important, that remembrance of what happened 80 years ago and the prowess that the Chinese have now shown through this military parade, that not only indicates where China is moving, but also shows its military and strategic strength for the world to see, acknowledge and accept. Thank you very much, Yunfei Zhao, to have joined us all the way from Beijing and to have given us your perspective. And thank you very much for Hari Saab to have stayed with us during the entirety of the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you when it comes to any topic, because you're an expert as far as those are concerned. Last two stories, please stay with us for 2 more minutes. Last two stories, ladies and gentlemen, the first concerns the US House committee that has released thousands of Epstein files. Now, these files include videos of apparent Epstein victim interviews and audio recordings from Florida investigation into these Epstein files are also part of these. Most of the documents apparently are said to have been previously released, and the Democrats are pointing that out more or less more than once. Now, the fact is that Jeffrey Epstein is a notorious personality, and his files contain many a detail that have been shocking for the normal American, for the normal human being as well, for what it includes and what it indicates. I don't want to go into details of the videos, but of course these files are extremely pertinent from a US perspective. Finally, ChatGPT is going to sound an alert to parents if the child is in acute distress. Now, it has announced a series of parental controls for its AI chatbot ChatGPT. We all know what that is, which includes notifying parents when their child is distressed. They say that ChatGPT will send parents notification if it detects that the teen is in a moment of acute distress, but it has not specified what may trigger such an alert, but it has said that the feature may be guided by experts. Well, let us see whether that actually happens, because if it does, it is going to be extremely important to notify the parents of any distress signal that the teens are going through. And of course, a lot of teens go through these different issues at certain periods of their time. So, if software can do that, it would be excellent. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow. Stories and segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.